This is a lecture from OpenTuition. To benefit from the lecture, you should download the free lecture notes from opentuition.com.
Now we're going to look at parts of the rational model in more detail. And first of all, we're going to be, in this chapter, looking at the mission and stakeholder appraisal. And of the two, stakeholder appraisal is by far the most important for you. So very quickly through mission. And the mission, often now formalized in the form of a mission statement, a written statement about half a page of A4 long. It sets out the purpose of the organization, why it's there, what it's doing, what it's for. The mission statement has the purpose, and then it may have the position. Do we see ourselves as upmarket or downmarket? Do we see ourselves perhaps as profit-seeking or charitable? It's really the whole reason for being. And then quite often nowadays they have a whole lot of stuff on showing what nice people they are, their values, that they hold their customers in great esteem. They will always value customers. They'll never try to sell customers products which aren't of the right quality. That there's a culture in the organization which of course is wouldn't entertain bribery or corruption or anything of that sort at all, and that the organization is ethical. Perhaps it'll go through Tucker's questions about, is it profitable, is it right, is it lawful, is it ethical, etc. And this is often set out as really a kind of public relations document. But there may be some purpose in making people really consider, what is the point of the organization? Why are we here? How do we make a success of our operations? Stakeholders can be defined as anyone affected by the organization, and there's a whole lot of them here. Shareholders, employees, managers, suppliers, customers, local people, the government, lenders. All of these people are in some way affected or touched by the organization. And the problem is that usually they're competing, or very often they're competing. So, for example, shareholders want dividends. Presumably up. They want profits up, they want dividends up. But of course employees want wages up. Now we have a conflict there. It might even be an ethical conflict there. To what extent should we pay our employees more to give them a living wage, if you like, if this is eating into the dividends that the shareholders are receiving, who may have risked their money on this venture, who may have supplied the capital to actually create the employment in the first place. So, but anyway, there's a conflict, and it is management's duty to try to resolve that conflict. Sometimes it goes easily. Sometimes it's very difficult. Sometimes it will lead to strikes amongst employees and a lot of industrial unrest before this conflict or ethical conflict is actually resolved. We get the same here. Down here we get, for example, customers who might want 24/7 operations. They want to be able to phone up at any time of day, 365 days a year, and find somebody on the helpline. But of course employees here, they might be interested in more kind of 8-hour for 5 days a week. And of course if the management wants to move employees from kind of 8-hour days, 5 days a week, towards maybe putting another shift on or working overtime or flexible working and so on, then of course employees might resist that and require higher salaries or something in lieu of that. The government wants you to pay your taxes. The government wants stable employment, but at the same time, the government doesn't want you to be going into liquidation and making people redundant. So government lenders want securities, lenders want their interest paid and so on, and to some extent there may be a bit of a conflict between lenders and stakeholders and shareholders there. Shareholders might want the company to really take on a little bit more risk and to see if they can improve their profits. Lenders are pretty happy if the company stays rather stable and doesn't risk anything and is nevertheless able to keep paying the interest out of the profits. So lots of conflicts. Management has to try to solve these conflicts, and the only tool or framework or model there is Mendelow's matrix, where it looks at the power of the stakeholder here, and it looks at what's called interest of the stakeholder. And basically, if you have a stakeholder of high interest, they're liable to be very active, whereas down here they're a bit more passive. How likely are they to actually almost protest or actually get involved with the issues? And the first one we'll put on is where you have a stakeholder who has no power and is not very interested anyway, even if they had the power. And I suppose the example we have there might be casual employees with low skill levels. Because they have low skill levels, it's easy to replace them. And because they're casual, they're not really committed to the company. They're not really relying perhaps on you as an employer to keep giving them work and so on. And if you employ them one week and not the next week, well, they kind of, are not going to protest about that. Maybe we think they should. I'm simply saying that they don't. Next one, we have keep informed, people with low power, but very noisy, very active, very liable to protest. Examples maybe that we have of this would be local people who live near new roads, who live near perhaps planned new airports. If the road has got all the planning permission and the government is behind it, then the population will probably not have very much power. But of course they can be very noisy. They can write to their members of parliament. They can write to newspapers. They can mount protests in the middle of the road and so on. And what we're suggesting there is you keep them informed. First of all, it's polite, and that may reduce some of their activity. But also very often people fear the worst. What you're actually going to be doing is rather less harmful than maybe what's gone around in the rumours. Next one is keep satisfied. These people have high power, but for some reason they don't exercise it. Perhaps ethical or professional or cultural reasons they don't exercise that power. With us, a good example is nurses in our National Health Service. Obviously, if nurses went on strike, it's very difficult to keep a hospital running. But because of their, humanity, ethics, professionalism, it's almost unknown for nurses to go on strike. So when it comes round to their annual pay rises, they're given enough kind of just to keep them satisfied. Because if you don't give them enough just to keep them satisfied, at some time, at some point, people will rebel and they will go up there. And they will become what's known as a key player. A key player has high power and is highly active. There might be people who have shown a willingness to go on strike for any little infringement perhaps of their rights. And if they are important employees that you can't operate without, for example, if they're airline employees, then really there's very little you can do about that. And when it comes to, say, pay rises or making sure these people have got good terms and conditions, they're going to be front of the queue. These people are almost going to be ignored. Maybe they shouldn't be, but that's kind of the reality. And the other ones you keep satisfied to make sure you don't provoke them into to becoming key players. And the keep informed quadrant here, you say, well, better keeping them informed than simply trying to ignore them. But understanding your stakeholders, understanding the power that they have and whether or not they are likely to take action is a key part of management judgment. And it's important for management to understand these factors, if you like, if they're going to try to resolve conflicts between the various stakeholders.